Hey, so this is going to be a little bit of a lighthearted video, as the title suggests. I was just thinking about this recently when I was watching a video about, the YouTube channel is called The Vile Eye, and they do like analysis of villains and stuff from usually fictional movies and stuff like, I don't know, Jafar, Hannibal Lecter, and a lot of goofy stuff. And they were doing kind of like a thing on all of the Disney producers, like Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and some of them on all the things wrong with them and why he thought they were evil. And obviously it's pretty stupid, but it made me kind of want to do a video of my own just about why I hate modern Star Wars since Disney took over. And I mean, it's a little bit of a goofy topic and a nerd topic, I know, but I think it deserves to be mentioned just a little bit because, I mean, let's face it, Star Wars was a really big deal for a while. Back with the original trilogy and even the prequels in the early 2000s. I'm going to tell you something that's not back then would have been really an unpopular opinion. I kind of liked the prequels. I mean, they weren't as bad, they weren't as good as the original, but they were not terrible. I mean, they added a layer of Star Wars that we hadn't seen before. They added some very good plot lines, and they were the best and the worst of George Lucas. We had awesome stories and awesome characters, just with some also really hokey dialogue and really dumb stuff like the love story and Jar Jar Binks thrown in. But they were on the whole still very enjoyable. I liked them. But of course, Disney bought Star Wars in I forget, somewhere in the 20 teens, and they've Disney-fied it, and yeah. Yeah, I remember when the first one came out, The Force Awakens, like I was really excited for it like everyone else, and I thought, oh, this can't be any worse than Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, because at that time we were spoiled and we didn't know what bad Star Wars really was. Well, then I saw it, and I remember I saw it with my family, and like my dad and brother are big Star Wars fans, and they were just beside themselves like, oh, this was so good, and a lot of other people were like that too, and I was just mortified in horror, that thinking, what are you talking about? This is just a generic rebranding of A New Hope with hokier lines, goofier characters, and better special effects. That's the only improvement, but you would expect it given that the movie was made in 2015, and I think A New Hope was made in the 70s, like late 70s, But I wasn't impressed at all. And then, of course, the other two came out, which were even more panned than the first one, The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. And honestly, I think they were overwhelmingly better or worse than The Force Awakens. I'd say a little bit worse, but I mean, they had the same problems and the same positives. On the positive end, they had okay acting and they had good special effects. On the negative end, which is kind of what's bringing me to the whole reason I'm making this video, why Disney Star Wars on the whole sucks, and that includes the TV shows, the story was just pathetic. It was terrible. It was boring, and I just zoned out throughout the whole thing. Or at least parts of it, And, also, the characters were not given the right development. Okay, comparing, of course, one of the most infamous and controversial characters of the new Disney Star Wars, Rey Palpatine, because that is her last name, not Rey Skywalker. But anyways, Rey was played by, of course, Daisy... Gosh, I'm blanking on her last name. Daisy Ridley, forgive me if that's wrong. But I like Daisy Ridley as an actress. I think she did an okay job in those movies. Plus she's pretty easy on the eyes. I never minded her, but I, like most people, was not overly in love with the character of Rey. Though compared to Finn and Poe, I thought Rey was wonderfully written, because those two just bore the living heck out of me. And Carrie Fisher, the way they brought her back, not overly amazing. Harrison Ford was the only one who made a good reprisal, but he was killed off pretty quickly. And then, of course, Mark Hamill as an old Jedi did not cut it. He was not fun to watch. It was awkward and painful, kind of like what everybody's afraid they're going to turn into when they become an old guy. Palpatine had an okay reprisal in the last one, but kind of just a pretty brief appearance too. But I don't know. But then, of course, the TV shows, The Mandalorian. I mean, oh gosh, what other ones have they made since then? I heard Andor was okay, and I've never seen any of it. But I saw some of The Mandalorian. I saw some of Ahsoka, because my brother absolutely loved it. I saw... Gosh, what are the others? I'm sorry. Of course, then the new one they've made is The Acolyte, and there's a bunch of others that I'm forgetting too. But yeah, honestly, I haven't liked many of them. I've hated almost all the stuff Disney's been putting out. Some people like a little bit of here and there, and I can understand. I mean, but I've yet to find anything yet that Disney's made related to Star Wars that I've liked. And the reason I claim for it is that they're missing the essence of the original Star Wars. And what I mean by that, the original Star Wars had kind of a niche appeal to it, but it wasn't a niche appeal, but it felt like it was a niche appeal despite the fact that everybody liked it, across a wide range of at least nerd culture. I mean, the characters were endearing. That's one thing about the original Star Wars. And George Lucas kind of got lucky, like with his casting of Harrison Ford, who was kind of helped fill the Han Solo role well. And then he got lucky too that, I think a few other things went right for him too, like Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine, and Mark Hamill did good as Luke. But the characters were much better developed, and the story was so much better developed. And even in the prequels, the story was much better developed. In fact, I would argue in the prequels, the story was maybe better developed than in the original trilogy. Now, of course, sorry, I thought I heard a siren. Where the prequels went wrong is they just had some things that were just so stupid that it kept it from being great movies. I mean, Episode 1, the plot was really messed up. And Episode 2, the love story between Anakin and Padme was just a joke. It was so bad. And the dialogue was questionable, some major miscasts. There were some major issues with the prequels. But in terms of the storyline, it was exceptionally well written, the prequels, almost better than the original. And some of the character development, I think, was very good. Obi-Wan Kenobi. And Hayden Christensen may not have been a good Anakin, but the overall plot of how they tried to develop his character throughout the movie was on the whole, not terrible. And Palpatine, I mean, goodness sakes, who would have thought an old evil emperor could be that entertaining? I have my Palpatine poster in view over there. But yeah, Palpatine was incredibly interesting to watch. And we got to learn about his mentor, Darth Plagueis the Wise, one of my favorite characters. I've read that book, by the way. It's another pre-Disney thing that is awesome, Darth Plagueis. I strongly recommend it. It and the Darth Bane series are why I have the Sith logo here, because I use a lot of that in my life philosophy. Some parts of the Sith code. But anyways, I actually have the Sith code up. Maybe I should have brought it down for this. I don't know. Anyways, yeah. But anyways, that's, it kind of brings me back to the things that were good about Star Wars. In the olden times, Star Wars had kind of a depth to it. It had, the original trilogy was more of a swashbuckling, grand adventure, but it was one of the first sci-fi epics, which is what made people love it. The new one, the prequels had elements of politics and elements of philosophy, if you want to call it that, in them. They had exceptionally cool battles, and on the whole, despite their flaws, were well made, just like the original trilogy was very well made. And even a lot of the books, like the Star Wars Clone Wars TV show, like some of the books, like Thrawn. My brother loves the Thrawn series, even though I've never read it. I'm meaning to. I started a little bit. I love, of course, Darth Bane and Darth Plagueis, and those are by Drew Karpyshyn. But anyways, then Disney took over, and it did what Disney does to a lot of things. It just turned it into a kind of lifeless husk of itself. And the best way to kind of compare it to something else is looking at what Disney does to its own products. Look at like the first Pirates of the Caribbean compared to the 4 sequels that they made after that. The 4 sequels after that, most of them made a decent profit, I think, except for the very last one, but none of them were particularly good movies. That's almost just objectively speaking the truth. The second one, I enjoyed it, I'll admit, it was okay. And some people might say, well, I liked one of them, and I can understand, but they were such a huge departure from the first one that it was just sad almost, And the same has been true with some of you might be old enough to remember the straight-to-DVD era, back when DVDs were a thing, but now before Disney became its streaming, big streamer. Disney had a lot of like sequels that would come from their big movies that were straight to DVD, like Pocahontas 2, The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, Lion King 1.5, Lion King 2. Lion King 1.5 was the only one of those that actually was kind of decent, because I remember seeing those back when I was a kid and a teenager, and that one actually had a few moments here and there that were pretty good. The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, I actually liked The Hunchback of Notre Dame a lot, both as a kid and as an adult. It's conflict with religion in it. It kind of mirrors my own sometimes. I love Frollo's song Hellfire in it. But anyways, Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 is basically unwatchable. It's so bad. The same with Pocahontas 2, Lady and the Tramp 2, what are the other two movies they made? Oh gosh, I can't. Oh, the Aladdin series. Well, I loved the Aladdin, like Return of Jafar as a kid, so that one I can't complain about too much. Even though it's not a well-made movie, but I watched it when I was like 7 or whatever. So I mean but most of the Aladdin sequels too were terrible. But now Disney's doing it to Star Wars, and the sad thing is I mean, as somebody who used to love Star Wars, it's really what I just. This is more than an anti-Star Wars rant. This is just kind of an anti-Disney rant because I haven't seen anything Disney has made hardly on its own recently that's any good. Now I know they own some properties that occasionally make some good things, like Marvel. The new Inside Out 2 movie was actually okay, and I'm pretty sure Disney owns the rights to that. And if Marvel still churns out a few good movies here or there. But look how far downhill Marvel's even went since Disney started taking over. It's really started to tank. And personally, this may be weird, but personally, a lot of my favorite Marvel movies were the pre-Disney era, or right when Disney was just first starting to take over. Like, I know this is weird, but I like the second Hulk movie, The Incredible Hulk, with Tim Roth and I forget the main actor's name that plays Hulk, but I liked X-Men Days of Future Past, and the Avengers were okay, but I started losing. I really just wasn't as big a fan of the Avengers as most people, the whole Avengers series, up until Endgame. And I saw all of them, but Endgame was a good movie, don't get me wrong, so was the first Avengers, but I didn't really like the ones in between. And again, it's just something about the way Disney makes their movies that I just really don't like anymore. It's all very generic, you can tell it's meant just to appeal to the widest number of people, no matter how stupid, no matter how cliche, no matter how stupid. I don't know, there's a better word than that, I know, I'm sorry. But it's the same thing with Disney with Star Wars, I feel like they're always trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator in their audience. They want to make it appeal to little kids and to adults. So they just make it really dumb humor, really watered down, really lame, and they hope they'll have a few good actors or whatever that'll keep it and I guess hold it together. And they got to make everything no more than PG-13. Most of Disney's movies are all usually a little bit watered down in that regard. I mean, I don't know. And the Star Wars, of course, is the best example of it because I'm always hearing people saying, oh, this new Star Wars has turned it around, this new Star Wars show. And every time I watch any of it, I just can't even watch it because I get so bored and so frustrated that I start getting really mad after a while, And it's mostly, and I will say this, everybody has different tastes. If you like Star Wars, obviously, you're entitled to what you like. But the new Star Wars really, truly just does not have well-developed stories or well-developed characters. And that is the heart of good storytelling and good movie making and good, whatever. You have to have a good story, something that compels people and makes them relate to it, and not just something that's the most generic crap you can churn out that you can sell to people, That's just the best way I know how to put it. It's kind of like, I really have hated everything related to Star Wars since Disney took over, and I hope someday that changes. I hope somebody else buys Star Wars from Disney and turns it around because, Star Wars used to be something pretty special, and I don't know. It's just kind of sad seeing the series that I used to love go as far downhill as it has, where I could care less what Disney's releasing about it. And anyways, that's just what I want to make this commentary about. If those of you in the comments feel the same, feel free to let me know. Or if you actually like Disney and this garbage that is churning out related to Star Wars, feel free to explain why. But as usual, thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye.